Welcome to Technovation. I'm your host, Peter High. My guest today is Sangy Vatsa, the Executive Vice President and Chief Technology and Digital Officer of FIS, a financial services company that offers payments and merchant services, banking, and capital markets offerings, earning roughly $13 billion in annual revenue. Sangy's held that role for roughly a year. He's an executive with deep financial services experience, having been the Global Chief Information Officer of Comerica for roughly 4 years prior to his current role, and was a business unit Chief Information Officer multiple times over at American Express prior to that. I look forward to learning more about his transformational journey, sources of innovation using digital technology, and his view of the future of tech at FIS, marshaling the efforts of a team of roughly 11,000 colleagues in his organization. Sangy Vatsa, welcome to Technovation. It's great to speak with you today.
Hi, Peter. Great to see you again. And thanks for the opportunity for me to share my thoughts with your audience.
It's a great pleasure. I appreciate you doing so. Well, why don't we begin with FIS? For those who may be listening who are less familiar with FIS, could you provide a bit of a thumbnail sketch as to the business that you're in?
Yes, absolutely. And FIS is a global financial services technology company, and it offers solutions in primarily three areas. It's payments and merchants business in banking and in capital markets. And annually, the company facilitates over $9 trillion worldwide, and services 90% of the top 50 global banks. And if I look at in the retirement space, FIS services over $3 trillion in assets. And so as a company, focused a lot around raising the experience of our clients and of our customers. And it's a great way to see what all is going on as part of the changes at the company. And my role, I'm, as you said, I'm the global Chief Technology and Digital Officer of FIS. I've been with the company a little over a year. I also have the responsibility for the business operations. It's about 11,000 person team across North America, Europe, and in Asia. And it's a really exciting time for us to be part of some of these major transformations that we are undertaking. And I'm glad to be leading that with my peers to really create the benefits for our clients and for our colleagues.
That's wonderful. I'd love to dive into some of the details you've just described. To talk a bit about the transformation that you were leading within FIS. I mean, it is, as you point out, fundamentally an information-based business, and so conducive certainly to innovation centered around technology and digital capabilities of various kinds. But I'm curious, especially in the year plus that you've been in role, what are some of the areas that you and your team have focused on in terms of innovating around those topics?
Yeah, and Peter, if I even look at broadly speaking, I mean, the digital change was already well underway across industries prior to the pandemic, and as I see during this time, the momentum has just picked up. And if I think about a recent study where it basically summarized that almost 80% of the boards are asking their CEOs to accelerate their digital journeys. And if I can just maybe demystify a digital journey, term can be quite, sometimes be overused. But if I just simplify it, think about banks where the prospects can take sometimes 3 to 5 days to get their accounts open, and if you can think about a way forward where you can bring this change, where from a standpoint of opening and to kind of filling up an application, opening up an account, even depositing money into your account and being able to transact all under 10 minutes from your mobile device. I think those are the kind of experiences we are talking about. They remove the friction, they create the opportunities for businesses to grow. It makes the growth very predictable. And by the way, we offer some of those services ourselves and some of those capabilities. And it's not only for the 90% of the top 50 banks, as I mentioned earlier, but the top 500 Fortune companies across industries, are working very closely with FIS, and FIS has been called out by our clients as the destination for innovation. And so I think that's one thing that we take a lot of pride in. We take it with full humility as well. If I look at from the the journey that we've been on, if I just look at 2020, right, not even going back too far out, but in 2020, we invested $1 billion into our product development and into our innovation to create these capabilities for our clients, and as we kind of create these products and services. And we launched FIS Ventures, which is another $150 million over 3 years, where we are actually investing in the startups that are seen as really leading companies and that actually help our clients to accelerate their own transformation journeys. And that's been actually put in place with a lot of focus on really enriching the client's growth itself. And then if I look at in 2021, we have embarked on 2 major modernization programs, very transformational in nature. And collectively, those are another $1 billion over the course of next 3 years. And I'll probably step through some of these programs, what they are. But these numbers are just not for the sake of sharing numbers, but these are basically huge investments we're making. A lot of focus on how do you create a winning capability where our clients can win, and we can be there to really see their growth happen. And as a result, be kind of successful on the journey with them. Obviously, enabling our communities, enabling our colleagues, goes along with that.
Well, just as you suggested, I'd love to hear more about those very programs, the $1 billion being spent in the next 3 years on modernization programs, as you noted. Talk a bit about some of what you anticipate those funds and the efforts of your team going towards, please.
Yeah, and I would say I'll start with these. Maybe I'll take example of the 4 things that are going to be very pertinent to that change that I see happening. One of the programs is what is all around technology transformation or digital transformation, is how do we as FIS become faster, innovative, and simplified, basically in our overall capabilities, obviously while staying secure and compliant, very, very important for us, but with the goal of really elevating our client and our colleague experiences. And so if you look at that whole program with a significant size of investment we are making in that, it's kind of speed of delivery of our capabilities, right? How do you get to 5 to 10x of at the pace at which we deliver capabilities? It's really taking our platforms and really getting them modernized. There's a significant pivot happening where in regards to how we deliver capabilities to our clients, and instead of selling platforms and products, and I can maybe talk about that a little bit later as well, is to really create those experiences that matter to our users. So there's a big kind of focus happening part of that transformation program. The other program is all about how do we reimagine, redesign, modernize our processes across our ecosystem. So whether these are back office processes, these are customer service processes, whether these are things in our client implementations. Again, how do we remove the friction from the process from end-to-end perspective? All sorts of technologies I can talk about that we're bringing to bear. There's a whole toolbox of technologies, but it's all about where AI, ML fits well. Where do other capabilities like your agent assist fit well? Where do RPS fit well? And so that's the second kind of a large program. The third one is really centered around advanced analytics. How do we really create these analytical capabilities that are very, very clearly monetizable? There are capabilities we've built inside the company that we are running our operations in a lot more effective way. When we talk to our clients, their willingness to pay for those services is very, very high. So we have that whole practice focused on really bringing the advancement into analytics to bear and to kind of make it happen as part of the overall offering. And then the fourth one I would call out is the transformation that we are driving in the space of contact centers and business operations. And that's, again, an area where customer service goes a long way, whether it's you're proactively looking to get some service or you're looking to get a service during some tough times, is how do you really create that frictionless experience? And so there's a significant investment we have going on. So if I look at the first one, very much focused on how do you start to elevate revenue? How do you start to elevate the net income? The second one around process optimization, very much around how do you really improve your operating margins? The third one, when you look at, is very much, again, elevating your revenue play, right? And obviously helping grow the revenue of our clients. And then the fourth one is all about getting to a world-class customer service. All of these kind of outcomes really matter to our clients, they matter to our board, they matter to our leadership team. And so it's really helping the team connect the dots. What they do day in, day out really matters to people who are the key stakeholders.
That's a fantastic overview. And I really like this idea of the 5 to 10 times faster in terms of speed of delivery of capabilities. And it strikes me, as you note, that part of that is a modernization aspect. So yours is a company that predates the digital age. And so like any large, complex organization, no doubt there is a degree to which you need to upgrade some of the capabilities to further reflect where technology is going as opposed to where it has been. And then it also strikes me, as you noted, in a couple different areas, whether it's new investments that you are making, either investments in terms of capabilities for the organization, but even also, as you mentioned the FIS ventures, investments into startups and the capabilities that they may bring to provide access to an organization like yours. That those are part of the elements as well. So both kind of from a hygiene modernization aspect, getting that right, while also making sure that you are in touch with the art of the possible by innovating inside and outside the organization as well. Is that a fair way to kind of typify some of the important levers to pull in order to achieve that very ambitious 5 to 10x speed of delivery improvement?
Yeah, and I think that's a great way of summarizing it. And it's got both the aspects of it, is that it's the outside in and inside out kind of a view aspect that you bring it all together. But the ecosystem is so broad. When I look at innovation is happening in all places, and leadership is where you can find it. It's not in like titles and bands. And so when we look at this ecosystem of innovation, and we have a capability in the company, we call it Innovate in 48, and it's been our really a significant platform that we use where innovation happens 365 days in a year. And we've created these capabilities like Innovate in 48 for colleagues, Innovate in 48 for students. We have a client edition coming next year. And we did the student edition this year. The focus was on financial inclusion. And that topic resonated so strongly across universities. We thought we'll start with a pilot this year and we'll grow it next year. And before we knew, we had 20 universities that participated, and we came in with some awesome ideas. And the way we designed it, the IP goes back to the communities. Our goal is to really bring that to the forefront. But in that example, you had some awesome capabilities from the startups that were put to play. There were things that people built during that whole weekend of engagement. And then FIS obviously brought a lot of help to that whole execution. And so to me, yes, absolutely, it's the balancing between all the aspects of that ecosystem.
Yeah, that's really, I like the way in which you frame that it's an ecosystem play. I'm wondering also, you talked about how a lot of this innovation predates the pandemic. No doubt the pandemic itself, as with so many organizations, has accelerated some of what you're describing also, in addition to perhaps accelerating the adoption of digital means of collaborating amongst customers and employees, for that matter, partially out of necessity and partially out of a broader reset in how we live our lives and how we do business, brought on by greater degrees of virtual work, virtual collaboration, just so much more that we're doing digitally, individually, and as part of our companies as well. I wonder if you could take a moment, as somebody who is doing so much clearly, as you've demonstrated through multiple responses to questions, both in terms of impacting customer as well as employee experience. Talk a bit about some of the insights, especially through the pandemic, as to what customers and employees, how they're evolving expectations, how their expectations have in fact evolved.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and it's a sad moment as well when you think about the impacts of the pandemic, and we felt it worldwide, and it was something that I also feel brought people together. I think the kind of the proud moment for all of us is that how people stepped up to help each other and to help the communities and to help companies and businesses and clients. And I see that with that whole change that happened, people have become a lot more empathetic. Leaders have become more empathetic. They've become a lot more understanding of scenarios. I can look back and see that certain kind of meetings in the past, you could have never thought about doing those meetings virtually. And being able to even do board meetings virtually, and people ignoring sometimes, some side noise or some background. At the end of the day, people are focusing on what matters more, and it's people getting those things done. So to me, I think there are certain aspects of colleague experience that as the companies invested in these capabilities, we brought technologies like videos, and we brought other collaboration tools, and companies adopted at 100% level, right? There was not a lot of concern about, would this work or not. People were willing to make it work. I think that mindset made a huge difference there. And I think with that, it opened up so many options, so many things we would have taken a long time to basically test and try and then bring it on. Once we opened the floodgates to say, and all of these things are open, available for us to use, people started using it and using those technologies. To me, the colleague experience has shifted significantly from that standpoint. I mean, if I just take up my own example, I joined the company during the pandemic, and to date, I have not met over 75% of my own team and business partners I work with. But the glass half full side of this, blessing in disguise, is that I've been able to meet with over 2 times more number of people through videos than I would have been able to meet in a traditional kind of a setup, right? So there are definitely benefits from that standpoint. We are able to very click off a mouse, and you're able to actually get to see somebody virtually, though it's in a video setting, so a lot more effective. So I think those things have helped. Companies have started to really look at those opportunities of offering more and more flexibility. If I look at our workspace model, over 80% of the people have signed up to be in a hybrid mode, to have the flexibility of working from office and from home. We have this model where we have 4 different personas. So your hub, club, home, and roam. And so, and I think the names are self-explanatory, but depending on where your needs of your role are, you are able to then map yourself to one of those 4 personas. So that's giving the level of flexibility as well. If I look at from a client standpoint, not only how our customer service professionals were able to step into those virtual settings and be able to really take care of the needs of our clients, and offering self-service capabilities that got built, or as you said, a lot of these investments were made in the past. I make a distinction there, is that the companies that made the investment without the pandemic were a lot better positioned, as you would expect. And it kind of made the point is that you don't have to wait for an emergency to happen before taking an action. If you do things proactively, and if I look back even where I was before I came to FIS, a lot of proactive actions that were taken in the prior 3 to 4 years came to fruition when we were on those pandemic crisis management calls, and you hear across the call from various stakeholders that the tech people were being called as superwoman or superman. That just made the point that people felt the level of connection to the colleagues who were enabling technologies to help them out during those tough times.
That's fantastic. I really appreciate that overview. At one point, forgive my ignorance, the one point of clarification: hub, club, home, and roam. Club is the one that I'm not sure that I fully get. What does that refer to?
Right. So club is more where you're, you are flexibly setting up your schedule. You don't have a fixed office location. You're going to a certain building, but you can actually reserve online, and you have that flexibility and of days, and also the office.
Got it. Understood. And I really love and very much agree. I've been espousing something comparable to that. Those organizations, all things being equal, that did the more transformation prior to the pandemic have been the ones that have been most resilient through it. I like the way you frame that as well. And among those changes, certainly our broader adoption of cloud technology, an area that I know you're very passionate about as well. Talk a bit about your own sort of evolving view on the best uses of cloud technology and its application to some of the ideas that you've described.
Yeah. The cloud technology, to me, I think that concept was so powerful even when it initially took shape. And it was, in a way, also an existing kind of a thought process that people had. So if you think about when the simplification happened inside companies, and companies pursued and embarked on these rationalization journeys. Several years ago, they were running things in different isolated, fragmented kind of zones, and they came back and said, I'm going to have a data center. All right. I always try to go back to simple things that happened before that are actually now at a much larger scale, and some of the basics are still there. Is that people build data centers and they said, okay, we'll drive consolidation. Virtualization was brought into play. A lot of virtualization vendors did very, very well. A lot of those technologies are still being used in different cloud provider offerings. So that virtualization led to that concept of I don't need to be having just my own space, right? And so now you start to extend that outwards to say people were initially not going to cloud because of security. People were not going to cloud because the concerns about expense. And as I saw the shift happen where companies started taking a position that we want to go to cloud for security, we want to actually go to cloud for speed. Yes, cost is a good side effect benefit that we can take, but just don't do it because of cost only, because you can actually optimize cost in different ways. Now, for companies at a large scale like FIS, we have massive scale, massive needs of our clients where we have our own secure cloud. And if you think of a community bank that wants to get entire service from us, we offer products and services, and we also offer it on our own cloud, and they get the complete package from a security perspective. But some of our clients are, they have their own cloud solutions where they have embarked on a public cloud. So we offer our capabilities that are been certified for those public clouds as well. So cloud to me is definitely a way to keep going forward. It has already started to give enough proof points in the industry. If I make it real with an example, where even if I look back, and this goes back to doing things when you're early in that journey versus kind of waiting where everybody has proven it out and it's all there, and then you're benefiting, but not as much as you could have benefited had you taken that transformation early on. And I recall in one of my prior roles, the strategy was why cloud, no cloud. And sometimes, as a leader, you can simply bring one word to the strategy, change it, and say why not cloud. And so my simple contribution was adding that word not after why. And that actually led to some very, I would say, visible changes, some really great partnerships across the company, a lot of leaders who felt the value prop, partnered with their own use cases, and to a highly tenured company with a great culture, but not actually as comfortable with some of those technologies, to make that pivot in 3 months after the value prop was presented and the board getting behind it in a very, very short time frame, and to go from 0 apps in the cloud to 100 apps in the cloud in under 9 months. And this is going to a public cloud. And almost 1/3 of those applications were high-profile, high-risk applications. And so that's, to me, is once you embark on those journeys and people can see that change, then thereafter the momentum builds up, and then you can go from 100 to 200 in a much shorter time frame.
That's a compelling example. I appreciate you sharing that, Sangy. And you've now been a leader, a C-level leader for quite some time across multiple organizations. You also have worked with a great number of transformational leaders. I wonder if you could offer some thoughts on what differentiates those leaders who are transformational in nature. You call out that it takes a little bit of courage and a willingness to be ahead of the curve in some areas, despite the risk that might be perceived. That because in taking some of those risks, you might have remarkable advantages for having done so. But that takes some fortitude and some vision, as well as, frankly, a lot of credibility on the teams that you're leading. But talk a bit about some of what you've seen as the transformational traits of leaders.
There are aspects I look at, and a lot of these I have gained over the course of time. I've had my own challenges with some of these, and then every experience you go through, you learn, and then you add that to your own toolbox. So experiences absolutely matter, and we should keep taking advantage of those experiences. But there are 3 things I look at. One is a mindset of a leader. The other aspect is, how do you really lead through the tough times? And then the other aspect is, how do you really drive change? And there are pieces that I wouldn't take a lot of time, but from a mindset, there's one of the components of the mindset is, are you really being bold and courageous and taking advantages of the learnings, and you're setting your goals without fear, setting your kind of targets without fear, but has to be rooted in some clear purpose. In the how do you lead through the tough times? It's very important that being in active listening mode, and you're taking different perspectives, and you are actually being also very, very decisive. And so when you're driving changes, if you've taken perspectives, you basically challenge teams to not settle for less and be transformational, and you're being decisive. I think that leads to some really good outcomes there. The other piece I would say is that the partnering for success has been one of the most critical aspects of it, right? You have to really understand who are the beneficiaries and have the beneficiaries get so internalized in that change that they present on your behalf. You don't have to be in meetings, and things can get approved without your being in those meetings. And so those partners who are people that you're really partnering with to drive kind of co-innovation, co-create, co-deliver that value. There are 5 KYs I established over the course of time, and those I really try to put them to test every time I'm embarking on anything large, and from a massive scale perspective. It's like know yourself. That KYS is very, very critical. Know yourself is that we all have strengths and we all have opportunities, and so I think that aspect of really applying your strength, but really basically surrounding yourself with people on your team and with your business partners and with the ecosystem of industry experts that you work with. You're part of my ecosystem, right? And I feel very comfortable tapping into you from time to time to say, this area I can tap into Peter because Peter can help me with this space. And so I think that know yourself and where you want to bring help. Know your people. They are the ones who will make it happen. Technologies are great, but people will make changes happen. Knowing your business is very, very critical, right? You understand how we make money, how we enable our clients to be successful. Knowing your customers, very critical, right? They are the ones who are going to make your company successful or not as successful. And then very importantly, as digital leaders, we need to know our technology. So know your technology, and be willing to be a T-shaped leader who, if required, can go a mile deep, and if need be, go a mile wide. And so those are the aspects I see. If you kind of do the culmination of those factors, they, I believe, will continue to help people to drive these kind of initiatives.
A great overview. And indeed, I'm very grateful you're a member of my ecosystem as well, Sangy. Thank you for the nice words. I wanted to ask you about trends, especially in light of this significant investment, $150 million in FIS ventures. No doubt you, among other activities that you're involved in, have reason to think about what the future of technology entails and areas that an organization like FIS might take advantage of as you look to the future. What are some of the things that are beginning to make their way onto your roadmap that represent some of those kind of trends of the future that you believe might be pulled forward for some value to an organization like yours?
Yeah, and technology-wise, a number of things that have matured over the course of last few years. If I look at the areas, you talked about cloud, and we spent a little bit of time on cloud. And cloud, if I look at from elastic cloud capability, how the workloads can now be run across cloud providers, I think that whole aspect will continue to grow and continue to be very fitting to various kind of needs we see coming from various industries. 5G, if I look at the space of, like the blockchain, the machine learning space, I kind of see the early success aspects coming from the quantum computing as well. A number of aspects being applied to cybersecurity. There are many other use cases pertaining to from the compute perspective, but there are also some very pertinent cybersecurity kind of benefits coming from quantum. The technologies, and if I look at even from a metaverse perspective, how the augmented reality is being brought in, even some of the simple collaboration tools coupled with augmented reality, can bring those experiences. We just ran our Innovate in 48, our annual edition, and the number of cases that were built, number of prototypes that were built in 48 hours, all touching capabilities like blockchain, what's happening in the metaverse space. And so to me, it gives me a lot of excitement that these capabilities are being put to use with a real purpose in mind. And the purpose when I look at it is it really helping a client experience? Is it really helping colleague experience? I mean, I talked about earlier the two large investments we are making, one in the tech transformation, one in the automation space, as I talked about from a process modernization perspective. 85% of our investment in that whole process modernization is actually focused on elevating client experience. 100% of that investment is enabling colleague experience. And so that's how we are starting to really put those focal points on these kind of investments. Is it really enabling experience? And if it's going to enable experience, it will be something significant. So to me, technologies will all matter. It's the multiplier effect of the technologies that will make it even more transformational. So if you now think about putting blockchain technology, along with machine learning and along with some of the crypto, can create a really world-class rewards capability. And we got something like that that we are already starting to offer. And so single-day settlements that you can enable through blockchain. These are now some very real things that are starting to happen, which I think a couple of years ago we were talking about these. Machine learning, I can think of several examples where these capabilities are now running in production and creating a level of excitement for our clients and for our colleagues.
That's a great response. I really appreciate that. And that thread throughout our conversation of the importance of experience, both customer as well as colleague, being sacred in terms of areas to investigate, areas to continue to innovate. Well, Sangy Vatsa, thank you so much for sharing your perspectives during a remarkable time in the world, certainly a remarkable time for FIS, and the fascinating stories that you've told in terms of the power of digital and technology to create new kinds of experiences, as well as to become an important lever of speed to market to benefit the organization more generally speaking, among the various things that we covered here. Thank you for a great conversation.
Thank you, Peter, and great to have the opportunity again to speak with your audience. Hopefully they find it helpful and also actionable.